I love political advertising. And not just because I love politics in all its theatrical forms, but because specifically I love the strategy of persuasion. And a political ad is really a response to an unspoken challenge. Can you persuade me in 30 seconds? If you had to change my mind or convince me of something in 30 seconds, how would you do it? If you had to make your most compelling case within a short window of time, how would you use that time? What information would you present? What persuasive strategy would you use? Would you try to persuade with reason or evidence? Or because you lack time, would you just try to hit me right in the feels? Would you try to make me laugh? Or would you try to make me cry? Or would you just try to convince me that any other option is unacceptable? Often the art of political persuasion devolves from making a compelling case in favor of your candidate or your issue into attack mode, attempting to win simply by comparison to a far worse alternative. This Tuesday, I'm asking for your vote, because after all, I'm the least crappy piece of crap on the ballot. Paid for by the Christiansen Victory Fund. The strategy of persuasion is fun to watch and to analyze. The pros could make a compelling case against gravity, and the amateurs are backfire artists. Political attacks separate the skilled from the reckless. It's a very fine line between landing a precise and effective jab on your opposition or mishandling your weapon and slitting your own throat. And this week we have what I can safely say without exaggeration is the most reckless, irresponsible, and just plain wrong political ad I've ever seen. It just released over the weekend, so whether this will be an effective attack ad or one of those accidental self-throat slitters remains to be seen, but I have my predictions about how this will play out. I'll play the ad in a moment, but because it's so outrageous and inflammatory, I want to set the context for the election and the ad sponsor first. The ad is generating a lot of anger, and justifiably so. So I think it's crucial to understand at whom to direct that anger should we decide to do that. On November 7th, this coming Tuesday, voters in the state of Virginia will select their next governor. Incumbent Democrat Terry McAuliffe is out on term limits, and so Virginians get to choose between Democratic Lieutenant Governor Ralph Northam or former Republican National Committee Chairman and 2014 Senate candidate Ed Gillespie. The ad in question isn't sponsored or endorsed by either candidate, at least in any formal sense. It comes from Eva Longoria's political action committee called Latino Victory Project, a group established in 2014 for the purpose of boosting the number of Hispanic candidates in local, state, and national elections. Or in the absence of Latino candidates, like in this election, taking stances on what are apparently Latino issues.
Hi, I'm Eva Longoria, co-founder of Latino Victory. So let's make sure elected officials know we care about education, good paying jobs, immigration reform, and many important issues for our communities.
Now, the Latino Victory Project had already entered this race prior to this week, running this wonderfully original ad explaining why you shouldn't vote for Ed Gillespie.
Trump and Ed Gillespie, two racist, bigoted peas in a pod, and he's using a dirty, racist tactic that every voter should know about. Instead of standing up to Trump's hateful rhetoric, Gillespie is teaming up with him to spread fear and racism. Don't let him get away with it.
I see. And were I to consider voting for the Republican candidate for any number of reasons, let's say tax reform or business regulations or whatever else, what would that make me?
Racist, bigoted, dirty, racist, hateful, and racism.
Compelling. A lot of us, myself included, have been wondering, after you exhaust these racist and KKK and Nazi accusations, what's left? What remains in your arsenal when you've already spent your most lethal ammunition? The answer is Latino Victory Project's new ad. You throw in children, and you imply that your opponent hunts them on the basis of their race or religion. The only accurate thing about this ad is that it's portrayed as a dream. I am confident that the only time an event like this has ever happened was during this filming session. Well, that and they accidentally demonstrated that walls are actually effective. The ad closes by implying that Gillespie supports the Charlottesville marchers.
Is this what Donald Trump and Ed Gillespie mean by the American dream? Latino Victory Fund paid for and is responsible for the content of this advertisement.
Now let's be clear, this isn't parody. This isn't a joke. This is making a serious case. And it's not just that Gillespie and Gillespie voters are racist, not just that they have bad ideas in their heads, but that they actively hunt not just people, but children on the basis of those ideas. Needless to say, there is no factual basis to support these claims, and indeed the bulk of them do not need debunking. If you claim that children are being racially hunted in Virginia and people approve of it, the burden is on you to support that wild claim. The burden is not on me to prove that's not happening. But to the implied claim on Charlottesville marcher support, there's more tangible evidence. Ed Gillespie released a statement the day of the chaos in Charlottesville. He didn't have the ongoing, drawn-out controversy the president did, and he expressed his condemnation in no unclear terms. Quote, "Having a right to spew vile hate does not make it right. It is painful to see these ugly events in Charlottesville last night and today. These displays have no place in our Commonwealth, and the mentality on display is rejected by the decent, thoughtful, and compassionate fellow Virginians I see every day. I know we all appreciate the law enforcement officials maintaining order and protecting public safety there." And after that, he went straight on camera and again expressed his condemnation in no unclear terms.
People who came in largely from outside our Commonwealth brought their hate, their white supremacism, their neo-Nazism with them. I agree with Governor McAuliffe. They need to go home, and they need to take that vile hatred with them. It does not belong here in the Commonwealth of Virginia.
If you're going to hurl slanderous accusations against a person, devastating accusations, like this guy is a racist child predator, you better have the facts to support them. And if you don't, it might be wise to disavow or retract those claims, because that metaphorical gun with which you just shot your opponent is swiftly turning around, and that backfire is imminent. Now again, to be clear, these ads were not produced by Democratic candidate Ralph Northam, and he has not endorsed them. But that said, they are running on the air in support of him. For people who are constantly policing the condemnation and disavowal of others, it's funny to see them so quiet when it's their turn to demonstrate purity. As of this recording, I have not seen any condemnation from the Northam campaign or the candidate himself, though that could change. In fact, all I have seen is a quote from a Northam spokesman tacitly endorsing the ad. Quote, "Independent groups are denouncing Ed Gillespie because he has run the most divisive fear-mongering campaign in modern history. It is not shocking that communities of color are scared of what his Trump-like policy positions mean for them." And even if Northam did condemn, it's not exactly clear what he'd condemn, because he's produced similar messages himself previously. He sent out this mailer of images of Gillespie and Charlottesville marchers, despite Gillespie's statements of condemnation, saying it's time to stand up to Gillespie's hate. And to be clear, these mailers are authorized by the candidate himself. And it should also be noted that Northam has, during this election cycle, accepted $16,000 in campaign contributions from the Latino Victory Fund, the producers of this ad. I think it's within reason to say that accepting Latino Victory Fund's money is tantamount to accepting their message, and their message was crafted on Northam's behalf. Now, I'm not a big fan of joining Pitchfork Nation and demanding condemnation and disavowal, because it just creates an endless cycle of constantly and nonsensically declaring what you don't believe in, which cuts away on time to articulate what you actually do. I defer to the voters of Virginia to take this information and make of it what they will and do with it what they may. Maybe that means changing their votes. Maybe that means lobbying for condemnation. Maybe that means nothing at all. I just don't feel right imploring people to take a certain action from my position in an uninvolved state. That said, even though I'm not a fan of breaking out the pitchforks personally, I can't blame anyone who does think it's appropriate to hold these people to the same standards they have created for everyone else. If they demand the condemnation of racial divisiveness from others, perhaps that ought to be the standard to which they are held. All I know is I enjoy the theater, and I can't wait to see how this show concludes on Tuesday, and I won't be surprised if this particular advertisement has a measurable impact. And if you're one of those voters, just for the love of God, watch out for pickup trucks on the way to your polling place. That and practice your fence jumping. just in case. You never know who you might run into. Thanks as always for listening and for supporting this channel. Always appreciate that thoughtful discussion down below, and especially over on Twitter. That is at ML Christiansen. You're always welcome to coming out and chat in my live streams. Those are linked down in the description. Looking forward to it. Okay, bye.